So unfortunately, I thought about having to do one of these shows before. I didn't think it would have to happen at this point, but sadly, I'm sure everybody knows at this point, since we're recording pretty late, that Mr. Brodie Lee, aka Jon Huber, which was his real name, passed away on December 26th after actually what ended up turning out to be a pretty lengthy illness. A non-COVID related long illness that he was actually in the ICU since sometime in October, a few days after the episode that he did with Aubrey Edwards and Tony Schiavone for Unrestricted. And I have to say, I've seen quite a few of these, memorial episodes over the years. Owen Hart stands out the most. Eddie Guerrero a bit, but I don't particularly remember seeing that one because I think I was no longer watching at that point. But we've seen these, and this is probably one of the best ones that have actually happened. That they focused on the person and not the wrestler. Of course, we basically hear in every remembrance or testimonial of him, his family came first, and wrestling came second, and that was what we heard from basically everybody, and everybody's stories were not actually wrestling related. They're all personal stories of interactions with him, and the amount of how full my Twitter feed was of people just putting out pictures and remembrance of Brodie Lee was just insane. I know you haven't been watching for so long, so I don't know how many of these you've actually gone through in real time. Probably not any that I can think of, at least big ones.
That's right. This is the first time that since I've been a really avid wrestling fan that we've had the death of such a prominent and active wrestler. Many times, especially WWE, they're generally very good about, giving a 10 bell salute to some veteran of the business, or someone who had been with the company previously. But this is, an active performer who, to our knowledge was obviously away, but we didn't fully know for what reasons. And someone who had just even months before been a champion. So this is the first time, like you said, in my wrestling fandom that I've had that happen. And it really was shocking. When I heard the news, I didn't believe it. I was really confused. I said, I just thought to myself, that can't be right. That seemed, it just really, really shocked me. I was sitting here in my room and, yeah, so I mean, a huge loss, obviously, for the wrestling world and for AEW specifically. But it has been just incredibly encouraging to see the outpouring from not just AEW, but, friends from WWE and from other facets of life as well. And everyone has recognized Jon Huber as just an amazing man. And he seems like to be the kind of guy who you really would have loved to get to know if you ever had the chance. So, this is the first time it's ever happened to me. And it's been a little hard. I didn't know him personally, but it's just seems like the kind of person that the world is a little worse off not having around anymore.
Yeah, and I've listened to plenty of the podcasts that have come out since, everybody talking about him, especially, I don't know if you listened to Wade Keller, but his post show for AEW, there was just a lot of people calling in, telling their stories, just how it affected them, or, there was one call in particular that was really sad. He was talking about how, he lost his dad when he was about the same age and all this stuff. And all these podcasts that I've listened to and everybody telling their stories, it's hard for me to relate because I have most of my family. I've only had a few losses. We lost my grandfather, but he was 86 at the time, a few years ago. And one of my grandmothers has passed away, and that's it. That's all I've lost for immediate family as far as like natural causes go. I've had a cousin pass away in a freak accident, but other than that, I still have a grandfather that I was just talking about. He's going to be turning 89 years old next month. I still have a grandmother. She just turned 87. And, I still have my dad, of course, and my mom and everybody else. It probably does help that my family size-wise is a lot smaller than most. My family tree actually, instead of getting wider, it gets smaller as the generations go on because they have less and less kids or no kids. I have a lot of aunts and uncles that have no kids, so it just really shrunk. I only have 4 cousins in my generation. There's only totally out of the total generations, there's only 6 of us, and like I said, one has already passed away. So I really only have 3 cousins, which is insane for how many people are actually in my dad is one of 3 and my mom is one of 4. But I only have 3 cousins out of that whole, and there's only 5 of us left. So it actually shrinks so it's very strange to me, and kind of weird because I just haven't had to deal with this type of stuff that much in my life. I'm pushing 40 and I still have all these people with me.
Right. Yeah, I feel weirdly the same, actually. I didn't know that we had a similar family like that. My dad is the baby of 6 kids. And of those 6 kids, only 3 of them had children of their own, and a few children here and there. And actually, it was the girls in the family who had kids. So when it comes to carrying on my last name, I'm actually one of 2 grandsons of 6 kids. And really, like when you said cousins, I only have I think 5 cousins. Like first cousins on both mom and dad's side combined. I've got 5 first cousins. So You're right. There's not been as much. It's a pretty tight family. So haven't had to deal with a ton of that myself. My grandmother passed away about 5 years ago or so. That was the one that hit hardest. But really, other than that, like you said, I do have a lot of my family around. So I can only imagine what the family's going through right now and what the many friends and coworkers are feeling. But like I said earlier, I mean, it does seem like it's a life well lived and well remembered as well. So certainly more, joy moving forward than sadness. And I have to admit too, it seems like we had a really good opportunity. The Unrestricted podcast that came out, you mentioned a lot of Mr. Brodie Lee on BTE. There's just been a lot of stuff that's actually been documented. And that's, I guess, one of the many benefits of being in pro wrestling is that it turns out a lot of your life is lived on camera, and there's a lot of ways by which you can remember Mr. Brodie Lee.
Yeah, and one of the things that came up on a show I was listening to, they made a great point that unfortunately, while it was ended up being the last year of his life, he was home a ton to spend with his kids because he was pretty much taken off everything for WWE while his contract was running up pretty much. So he's pretty much home for those 6 months. And then with AEW, he only had to come in once a week for what was going on, so he had a lot of home time, which sadly turned out to be in his last year. But he spent a lot of time with his kids, and his kids were like everything to him. Right. As you heard from the interview with Bryce Remsburg, they seemed pretty close, and that's what they always talked about was their families, and they never really talked about wrestling, and that was like his biggest thing. And talking about that, as soon as taping was over, he was on the road getting home as quickly as he could, regardless of what else was going on. So let's set it up here. You're listening to the That's Wrestling podcast. We are live on Twitter and YouTube, so if you listen to this as a podcast, then head over to those. Did I say Twitter? Twitch. Yeah, Twitch and YouTube. And you can head over there if you are interested in watching this show live. Follow over there and it'll let you know when we go live. Twitch is pretty much automatically set up that way. But if you're on YouTube, you hit the little bell notification. It'll let you know as soon as we go live. So we do this show live. You can head over to our Discord. The link is in the show notes. Comments, questions, feedback, you can send those to Eric at that'swrestling.com, or you can head over to our now is Twitter page. That's Wrestling One with the number one at the end, and also leave a review over on your favorite podcast app of choice. And yeah. So with me today, I have Caleb Johnson back as always. Our schedules have been really strange, but hopefully we will get back.
Mostly mine. Let's be honest. Mostly mine. For most of our fans will know that I'm currently in training with the government for a new job, and we're having, because of COVID, usually we'd be able to just be here, 5 days a week. But because of COVID, we're actually living here on campus and not allowed to go home. So they said, hey, you've got free weekends. We're going to put you to work. So actually the past few days, even Friday and Saturday, they had some events that we had to take part in. So yeah, it's been a little weird, but definitely hoping to get back to the regularly scheduled program. And I think it will now that the holidays are over. So we'll be back to Thursday nights.
All right. I need to take this from my wife. So if you want to take over for a second, we'll see.
No problem. Yeah, so as we've already begun talking about a little bit, we have been, unfortunately had the news here that Mr. Jon Huber has passed away, also known as Mr. Brodie Lee. There's been a great outpouring of support and love for him from, as I mentioned, both the AEW roster as well as many on the WWE side. He seemed to be a very, very popular guy. People really loved him, especially some of the most touching posts that I've read are from some members of the New Day from WWE, Big E Langston and Xavier Woods, just written some great posts. I think they were travel buddies for quite a while when he was, at the time, the former Luke Harper. But as we'll get into a little bit later, we actually had a kind of an interesting tie-in to WWE on this show. Kind of interesting, I thought, but we'll obviously get into that once we review one of the matches, but an interesting tie-in to his WWE time.
So this is going to be fun. We're going to have to postpone the rest of this show because my wife and her friend are currently stranded. Their car just died, so I have to go take care of that.
Oh no, that's awful. I'm so sorry to hear that.
All right, so
emotional opening too.
Right, I will get back with you, and hopefully we can come back in an hour or two. So we'll see how that goes.
Just let me know, 100%.
All right.
To them, hopefully they are safe and that you make it out to wherever they are.
All right. I'll see you in a little while.
Sounds great for That's Wrestling.
All right, so we're back, and it's been about 5 hours. I had to go rescue my wife and her friend and her toddler from a broken down car, but it wasn't a crash or anything. It just died on the side of the road. So
well, thank God everyone's all right.
So everybody's all good. So we'll pick up where we left off here, and we will start running down this show here. So this was AEW Dynamite for December 30th, 2020, the final show of the year. And we start off the show with a 10-bell salute to Brodie Lee. His wife is there with her 2 kids, and basically everybody who wasn't behind a camera was out on stage. All the wrestlers, all the rest of the company, anybody who works behind the scenes, all the business people and whatnot, all up on the stage. And we had Brodie Lee's son is actually named Brodie. Obviously Brodie Lee. Jon Huber is not his real name, but he named his son Brodie, which he was no longer using that name when he was born. He was Luke Harper at that point, I believe, because it was 8 years ago. So throughout the show he's called Brodie Jr., referred to as Brodie Jr. He was in the front row the entire show pretty much. They also refer to him as -1 of the Dark Order. Since Brodie is 0, then it would make Brodie Jr. -1, and he has a Dark Order mask on as well. Then after that we cut to some words from Jon Moxley. I'm not going to run down the things that they said because I couldn't do them justice, but you can go to the YouTube channel for AEW. Every single one is in its own clip there, so you can see what people have had to say, plus some more from people who weren't on the show but had something to say as well. So we go, basically this entire show was built around the Dark Order, and it was really a show put together a lot for Brodie Jr. He had a hand in a few of these matches here and putting together the final match of the evening with his favorite three wrestlers teaming up. So it was a pretty a fun night as far as that goes. We start off with Private Party and Matt Hardy versus the Young Bucks and Colt Cabana. Colt Cabana obviously visibly holding back or not even really holding them back when they started. He and Cassidy started off. We have some a triple team drop kick from the Bucks and Cabana on Hardy at one point. Colt throughout this match is having just a lot of fun spots from him. He did a springboard moonsault to the floor onto Hardy and Private Party. Lots of high-speed action, double and triple teaming from Bucks and Cabana. And Hardy Party get the heat on Matt Jackson for quite some time. A lot of aggression out of Hardy Party. And I wrote down here, I actually kind of want to see Private Party turn heel with heel Matt Hardy at this point. Kind of reinvent themselves a little bit. I'm not sure how much farther they can really go with their current gimmick anyways. Matt Jackson hits a twist of fate on Matt Hardy at one point, and we have Hardy, well, so we have the, I don't know what I wrote here, something to do with Colt. Okay, so Colt takes out Private Party, hits a lion salt and then a flying apple into a pin for a 2 count. We have Matt Hardy pulling Nick off the apron and snaps Colt across the top rope for a roll-up pin attempt. And then Nick gets the hot tag, goes crazy. Then Colt and Matt are taken out on the outside. Nick gets hit with the gin and juice and a twist of fate and a splash and a 450. And then Colt Cabana ends up breaking up that pin. Matt jumps up on the apron. Matt Hardy, that is, jumps up on the apron. He's wanting Quen to use a chair, and they're kind of having a little bit of a stare down. Quen does not want to do that, and Colt ends up getting the tagged in, and then Bucks and Colt take everybody out. Colt hits the Chicago skyline on Cassidy. Bucks hit the Indie Taker, and then Colt gets the pin. And then what I thought was a nice touch here, after the match, the Acclaim come out and they say they want to say something about all this Dark Order stuff tonight, but that's when Christopher Daniels and Kazarian come out. They push the Acclaimed into the ring, and they get super kicked from the Bucks, and then Colt hits a double bionic elbow to finish them off. So I thought it was a nice touch. Like, the heels are going to come out and say something disparaging, and all the baby faces just kind of beat the crap out of them before they could get there.
Yeah, absolutely. And this match would start the trend of the night of the big babyface victory. Even though we're not used to the Dark Order being babyface, I think that the booking of this show was handled very, very well. And in fact, sets a new standard, I think, for any tribute show to follow. One that is difficult, but one that I think they really almost perfectly hit the line between, breaking kayfabe to really acknowledge, to know that we're doing all of this to acknowledge, the life of, Mr. Brodie Lee, but also continuing those storylines. I think that there was a very good mixture of not just tribute, but also working that into, or I should say working the storylines that are ongoing currently into a tribute show. I thought that they were interwoven very, very nicely. it should be, mentioned. I think it's pretty obvious for everyone, but this Wednesday was supposed to be the first night of New Year's Smash. It was a very different show just a week or two ago before the passing of Mr. Jon Huber. The entire show was already pre-planned. We ran down the card a couple weeks ago. So they were going to do something totally different, and this was absolutely changed entirely, flipped upside down in order to put out the show that they put out. So I think that's important to note. But I did think that they did a fantastic job throughout this show, like I said, of weaving in the continuing storylines to a tribute show. And again, like I said, we start the pattern of babyface victories, which is the absolute right decision in this case.
Yeah, they didn't stray too far off the path of what they're already on. It just seems like they're pushing some stuff out for the most part. And as you were saying, that this was going to be the first night of New Year's Smash, and they're just really shifting everything a week forward. Tony Khan was up for like 48 hours dealing with putting this show together, dealing with his other stuff. Dave Meltzer was talking about how he was actually on the phone with Tony Khan at 2 a.m, what would be Tony Khan's time on the East Coast, and he was still up trying to figure out what to do, and so he just took the rest of that night and just kept going through. So he worked pretty hard. And actually, you could see when Tony Khan came out at the end of the night, it looked like he had been hit by a truck. It looked like he had not gotten much sleep at all. So he put a lot of work into this show. A
lot of credit to him as well for this. I thought, he is people already talk about Tony Khan as Booker of the Year. And I think that this, last minute response essentially to a real world tragedy just goes to show it was still a good show. Like, it wasn't even, remove the emotion from it. It was a well put together wrestling show. So I think that Tony Khan deserves a lot of credit.
After this match, Darby Allin talked about how he wished he could have, he really wanted to face Brodie Lee at some point. Sadly, he could not. Next up, we had Evil Uno, Stu Grayson, and Lance Archer versus Eddie Kingston, Butcher, and Blade with Bunny. And Lance Archer came out and was wrestling in the wife beater and jeans and the bandana in the pocket, a la Luke Harper. So he was... that was a great homage to Luke Harper, his former character. Eddie Kingston comes out on the mic and says, "Brodie, I love you, I miss you, but the Dark Order is nothing without him, and we're going to prove it." So keeping a little bit of heel there, but throwing out some thoughts as well. Uno kicks Kingston. I like this right here. It was actually the big boot that Brodie would use. Uno kicked Kingston while the ref was checking on Kingston's boots after Uno's like, check his boots, which I thought was a great little thing. Everyone hops in the ring right here. Lots of double and triple teaming with Lance, Uno, and Grayson, and just like body slamming. I believe Uno and Grayson gave Lance Archer basically a double body slam on top of Kingston. Both Butcher and Evil are looking good. They've dropped weight throughout this year, so that's something I noticed, especially in this match. And actually, it was mentioned on commentary by Jericho that the Butcher has actually dropped a good amount of weight as well. Uno sent to the outside. The Bunny gives him a kick from her heels, and I have to say I like the change in ring gear from Butcher and Blade as well. And they're not wearing the trunks. Blade is now wearing long black pants, and Butcher is basically wearing like calf cut, cuts halfway up the calf type pants, and he has like a sash around his waist with Butcher on like a written on it, which I think it's a much better look. Evil Uno and Kingston have this slap fight, and then it turns to punches. I thought that was a great spot right there. Archer gets a tag, and even though they actually missed the tag, I don't know if you noticed that. Did you notice that they didn't even touch Evil Uno and Lance Archer? And Lance Archer reached back down to grab the tag, but Uno had rolled under the ropes and already out on the stage. So Lance Archer's like, screw it. He's like, screw it. So he just got in the ring, even though they actually missed the tag.
Funny.
Archer hits a ripcord choke slam, and Archer walks to the middle of the ropes, and he does basically a moonsault off the top rope in the middle, and then Butcher comes in, and Lance Archer, that is, just trucks through Butcher. Near fall on Blade. Archer lifts Blade for the blackout. Kingston runs in to pull him down, but he ends up eating a punch. And then Grayson hits this awesome over-the-top slingshot DDT onto the apron onto Butcher. That was a really cool spot. And then Stu and Uno hit Fatality and get the win. And then post-match, Kingston gets thrown into the ring by Archer. He gets beat up by all of them. And then even Jake the Snake ends up hitting him with basically a Rainmaker. He did a ripcord punch / clothesline. And it looked like he was having the time of his life out there. He got to hit something. So he looked happy about that.
Yeah, I was kind of started thinking back. I don't remember how long ago it was that we talked about it, but we were talking about Jake the Snake at some point, and I think I mentioned that I thought that he needed to cool it, and he was trying to get too involved and talk too much. This was fine. Like I didn't mind it here. It was just like this was the show that if you were gonna have something like that happen, it's a little bit more okay. I think I wouldn't want to see him too much involved. But to hit that and kind of get that baby face pop, I thought that was pretty funny. I really liked it. Stu Grayson continues to impress me, to be truthfully honest. I really like him in the ring. I think he's come, even though I know he was good when he showed up, I think he just continued to impress me. So I think he's a great talent. And I actually didn't notice too much about the Butcher's weight, but I've noticed Uno's weight. I noticed Uno is cutting a little bit too. And yeah, they look really good. So I thought this was a lot of fun. And just, again, another great Dark Order victory. And truthfully, I wonder if this is going to be the start of something, even in kayfabe, of a face turn for Dark Order. It'd be very hard for them overall to maintain, I think, heel personas, or even to be booed. They will not be booed. They will not be booed for a very long time. And really, many of them, Silver and Reynolds and Uno, Colt, Cabana, a lot of them are not being booed anyway. So maybe now is the time to, I hate to say take advantage of the situation. That's not the right wording, but to realize the truth of what's going on right now. And maybe just look at it in actuality and say maybe we need to make a change.
Yeah, and not swim against the fans, really, because, I mean, we had Evil Uno and Stu Grayson. They were already being cheered, especially John Silver. It was pretty much on their way to all being baby faces anyways, just kind of naturally, and actually mostly through BTE. A lot of the stuff over there just kind of endeared them to a lot of the hardcore audience, and now a lot of that is bleeding over into the rest of the audience that doesn't watch BTE. Now that John Silver's having more of his personality shown, we've seen Anna Jay quite a lot as well, and Evil Uno and Stu Grayson have been, constantly good in the ring. We obviously had the missteps early on with the Dark Order before Brodie Lee came in, but now I think the Dark Order has kind of found its footing. Where we go from here, though, now is going to be the question how they continue on. After this match, we had another video package, a lot of shots from Brodie's personal life, words from Arn Anderson, Bryce Remsburg, who he is known for a really long time, and Dax Harwood, and some more people. Again, video is up on the YouTube channel, so you can go watch that. Next up, we had Hangman Page, John Silver, and Alex Reynolds teaming up to face MJF, Santana, and Ortiz. And John is wearing the mini Brodie Lee gear that Brodie Lee had purchased for him. So it's basically his exact same gear, but it says John or Silver down the side instead of Brodie or whatever. It actually kind of looked kind of funny just because of how the ring gear is cut and how it actually made him look a lot smaller than he's already small, but they made him look even more small, which was kind of funny.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And in fact, when he came out in that, I was thinking big rig. It reminded me of the big rig character in the gear. And as I was looking at it, I was like, that dude is so small. Like, it's so funny.
It almost made him look like an Oompa Loompa because it was way more baggy on him as well. So it looked like he was wider than he was. So that just made him look even shorter. It was kind of funny.
It definitely cracked me up, but he looks good in it.
Yeah, I'm curious if he's going to continue using that gear for a while. I guess we'll see. I wonder. Alex and before we had MJF coming out, and he had a bandana on that said "Proud and Powerful" on it, and he had I believe Puerto Rico inspired trunks on as well that Santana or Ortiz had given him. I guess that was on some sort of YouTube video, but I didn't catch where it was from.
Yeah, it was a clip that they put out on Twitter and Facebook. It was actually pretty funny. I wish that they would have taken just a moment earlier in the show to put it on. Maybe even have it as one of the earlier just quick segments between matches, and maybe have it, a match or two in between and then go to this. But the clip is MJF, and I think he was given some sort of interview like to the camera, just classic MJF promo material, and he's interrupted very quickly by Santana and Ortiz. And they said, "Hey man, like last week, we really appreciate that. I want you to know, like, we're good, we're brothers." And he was like, "Thanks, man." And he kind of like, it was another one of those kind of more sincere, genuine sort of things. He kind of gave him, a pound. And then they said, "We got you something." He gave him this box. And if you haven't seen it, you got to go look it up, because MJF takes this box. He's like, "Great, thanks, man." And he pops it open, and all of a sudden he goes, and he puts it down. And he goes, "I can't wear that." And he goes, "Yeah, that's for you, man." He's like, "Are you sure?" And they're like, "What, you don't want it?" And they got like pretty mad. And he goes, "Oh, no, it's fine. I'll wear it." It was a pretty brisk little clip.
All right, I'm going to have to go hunt that down now. Alex and Jon are standing off with Santana and Ortiz, and they pull back their jacket, and they have papers tucked into their pants. This is a thing from BTE that Brodie Lee would always hit people with a rolled up thing of paper. So this is an ongoing joke for months. So that's where this came from. And so they throw the papers at Santana Ortiz, and then Paige and MJF started off. And we have then Paige producing a roll of papers as well and throwing those at MJF, which I thought was hilarious. We have MJF, he's sent to the outside. He starts yelling at Brodie Jr. in the front row. We get some good offense from John Silver, just running wild throughout this entire match. That guy is like, I don't know. He, like they always say that he is addicted to Mountain Dew, and I have to say that's probably the case. He had a lot of caffeine in here. And then we have a fall away slam from Paige onto MJF, then hits the crossbody to the floor, and then back in, lariat on MJF, inner circle, get the heat on Paige for a while. Eventually, MJF takes too long to deliver a double axe handle, and Hangman gives him a big boot, gets the tag to Silver. Silver runs wild some more, hits this crazy like pop-up monkey flip ankle destroyer. I don't know. It was like I
didn't know what to call that either.
It was crazy. You have to go see it. I believe it's posted on YouTube if you just search for it. But then he gets hit with a heat seeker when he comes back into the ring. Then Wardlow gets into the ring and starts to get involved, and then out comes the former Eric Rowan. And Jericho's going nuts. It's Eric Rowan. It's Eric Rowan. And one of the other guys from commentary is like, it's Eric Redbeard. Like, because obviously Rowan is trademarked by WWE. And he fights Wardlow to the back. Later, we have MJF yelling at Brodie Jr. some more on the outside, and then he pulls off Brodie Jr.'s mask, and like the luchador that he is, he's hiding his face, and then he's like, screw it. He grabs the kendo stick that he's been carrying around all night and whacks MJF in the head with it. He takes an exaggerated bump, and then back in the ring, Silver hits the discus lariat and gets the pin. Post-match, Eric Redbeard comes out to celebrate with the winners. He has a sign. I didn't write exactly what it said. Did you?
I didn't write it exactly down, but it said, I think it said, "Goodbye, my brother. For now, we'll see you soon," or something like that.
Oh, yeah, we'll see you down the road. I think that's what it said.
Down the road, that's what it was.
Lots of tears all around on the end of this one. John Silver had to be helped up by Eric Redbeard because he was just like, he had just broken down at this point. This match was, I think, the highlight of the show, getting Brodie Lee Jr. involved, and obviously this was planned, and after he hit MJF with the kendo stick, that kid had a smile that looked like it was going through his ears. It was so big. So he was having the time of his life. What did you think about that? I thought this match was great.
I completely 100% agree that this was really the emotional crux of the show, I think. It was so emotional for Hangman, John Silver, Alex Reynolds, Eric Rowan. I mean, some of Brodie's not only closest friends in, Eric Rowan, but also in really not just closest friends with Silver and Reynolds, but there was a very strong connection with those two specifically and everything that they did on BTE. I think that those two have, as we've mentioned before, have kind of become the stars of the Dark Order segments on the show, or on BTE specifically, that show. And there was just a real mix of emotions, obviously, in the ring here, and you could see it on everyone's faces. I mean, no one was even bothering to hold back any tears, especially Eric Rowan. And I hate to say this, but like, if he is in AEW, they're going to need to give him a couple squash matches first, because his first image was sobbing, but it's totally understandable. You know what I mean? He's this big guy and he was just blubbering. As a side note, I thought that the Eric Rowan and then Excalibur trying to cover for Jericho and say Redbeard kind of made me laugh. But even Jericho was going full for it. He was like, "From the Bludgeon Brothers," like another trademark tag team. So they're like, you could just hear them like thinking like, "Shut up, Jericho." You know what I mean? But yeah, a great match. The bump that MJF took for Brodie Jr. was just like way too exaggerated, but like perfect for the moment. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And I'm sure we'll talk about it maybe a little bit after. But I've seen some videos going around the internet of Brodie Jr. Taking it to everybody lately.
Yeah.
He's been crushing some dudes backstage. So yeah, I thought this was beautiful. Honestly, it made me tear up just watching it, and it was a very, very good match and another great win for the Dark Order. Babyface win here tonight. My other thought that popped in my head real quick is, do you think that they are angling Hangman to become a serious part of the Dark Order? I mean, they've been teasing it anyway, but now with a little bit of a gap of a major star, do you think they might go that direction?
I would not be surprised if Hangman became the new leader of the Dark Order, or kind of elected the reluctant new leader of the Dark Order. I could see that happening.
That would be best, I think. That'd be pretty funny.
Or
because
even
they all want him to in kayfabe. They're all like, "Go Hangman!" They think he's so cool.
Yeah. Of course. I wouldn't be surprised if they brought Eric Redbeard in to take that spot as well. So I guess we'll see how that plays out.
I agree.
From the YouTube, we have from Roadkill Joe, "Rest in peace, Brodie Lee. Such a wonderful person, performer, and entertainer. Sucks that he's gone. I got to spend some time with him backstage at an indie show we both worked right before WWE stalled his career." That was from Roadkill Joe over on the YouTube. watching us live, thanks for joining us. Next up, we move on to Tay Conte and Anna Jay versus Penelope Ford and Britt Baker. Anna Jay was emotional throughout this entire match. You could see it on her face. We had some rolling with Anna Jay and Britt to start it off, and then Penelope and Tay Conte moved on. Good judo throws from Tay. Kip distracts the ref at one point. Britt runs in, hits a running knee. We get some interference from Rebel, and they get the heat on Tay for a while. Penelope hits a really great double knees. I don't know what you want to call it, where she has them over her back and then lifts her up over and drops down, and basically it's like a reverse backbreaker type of move. Tay and Penelope hit each other with the same pump kick at the same time. They both get tags out to Britt and Anna Jay. Anna hits a kick to the ankle and then a flip over neck breaker, a kick to the face. Penelope comes in and Tay comes in to take her out. Anna hits a kind of like a reverse heel kick, and Baker hits a neck breaker. Penelope gets tagged in and hits a blockbuster on Anna for a 2 count. Then Anna Jay locks on the Queen Slayer to Penelope. Tay runs interference to block both Britt and Rebel, and she ends up getting the tap out victory. And she is pretty much breaking down at this point as well after the match was over. Really solid match from these ladies, and I think Tay Conte, I mean, look how far how Anna Jay has come from. Basically, she was like her third match ever is on TV at the Georgia tapings, and now she's looking insanely improved in the 9 months since she basically came. And Tay Conte, same thing. I didn't see her in NXT, but a lot of people are saying, she was there for 5 years, and now look, in like the 6 months that she's with AEW, she's like completely exponentially gained experience and improved a lot. And if you put her in with that judo background that she already has legit fighting background. Work off of that. She already knows that type of stuff. Now you just need to put it all together, and I think Tay Conte is going to be a big player in AEW in the coming years if she stays around.
Absolutely. It feels kind of weird to say this because this was not a normal Dynamite show, and it almost feels weird to review it like it is one. But if I remove, everything else that happened, this week and the reorganization of the matches, if I strictly look at this as a women's match on an AEW Dynamite, this was one of their best in a while. This was a very good match, and it kind of gave me a little bit of hope there for a second, because I know we've talked about AEW's women division and how it could use a little bit more attention, and maybe some of the women could use a little bit more just airtime work, to try to develop it, because it's not one of their strengths right now. It's not, but then again, to be fair, their men's division is full of, very tenured, very experienced stars. So I can understand. But yeah, this match made me I was engaged the whole time. I thought Tay Conte and Jay, specifically the two of them, and they actually work very well together. I know they've been playing up their friendship, not just on Dynamite, but also on BTE. Man, if they want to be like a girls tag team or just singles, I mean, I thought they both looked fantastic in this match. Obviously, I always like Britt Baker, to be fair. So, I mean, I'm a mark for her. I really appreciate her gimmick and her work in the ring. So I know she can go. But specifically, I think the focus, rightfully so, was on the team of the Dark Order. I don't think Tay Conte is officially part of the Dark Order. I think she's kind of like associated loosely through Anna Jay, but it was the perfect result and a very good, objectively, a very good match. As you mentioned, Anna Jay, very emotional throughout this match, understandably so. And I think there were also, maybe a good point to note, there were a lot of tributes to Mr. Brodie Lee, not just in the promos and in the people they got to be involved, but also in the ring. There were quite a few of his old this and the discus lariat. We saw a lot of his moves being broken out across the entire show, and I thought that was very tasteful and very nice. But again, a very good match, a great result, and I really, really like Ty Conti and Anna Jay. They're both fantastic, and like you said, vastly improved from their first matches.
I mean, even Penelope Ford and Britt Baker. Penelope had that great match with Hikaru Shida a while back, and Britt Baker, even though she had a broken leg knee, right? And she was out for like 3 months not being able to do anything, and suddenly she's like improved when she comes back.
Yeah, she's right back to doing awesome. I can't remember if it was her knee or her lower leg. I thought, for some reason, I thought it was like in her like shin and ankle area, but maybe it was her knee.
Yeah, I can't really remember at this point.
I just know she was out and she did a lot of good promos in between.
Yep. We have Tony being summoned to the ring by Britt. Britt says that she's sick of this conspiracy. It's all rigged. It's all a big rig. Which is a call out to Brodie Lee, and Thunder Rosa runs in and attacks her from behind. So we continue on that storyline. So that was basically it. They got pulled apart. They let us.
Also, could not hold back a smile when she said "big rig."
Yeah,
I don't know if you noticed, but I think she was probably meant to keep it very serious and like in the moment in her promo, but when she said big rig, she cracked this huge smile. And again, everything that happened like that on the show is completely like appropriate for the circumstances. I think normally I'd be like, yeah, that's not very kayfabe, but no, it's all appropriate here. And it was, again, a great interweaving of the existing storyline with the, obviously last minute booking of the show.
They let us know next week, Snoop Dogg is going to be there. We're going to have Omega versus Phoenix for the AEW Championship. We have Shida versus Abaddon for the Women's Championship. We have the Bucks and SCU versus the Acclaim and TH2. That should be an interesting one. Wardlow and versus Hager will happen, and Cody Rhodes versus Matt Sydal. The return of Jon Moxley in the building, and Jericho will once again be on commentary. So basically they just bumped forward everything. So I'm still looking at nothing's really changed on this other than adding Bucks and SCU versus the Acclaim and TH2. So should be a cracker this week.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to it for sure. Obviously, matches that we were looking forward to anyway just get shuffled around a little bit. But the SCU, I'm really interested. I know we talked a little bit last week about the SCU promo from Dark, where it looks like they're doing a storyline on the next loss for SCU. They will disband. And anything that they're involved with now has me really excited. So to see this become an 8-man, I'm really excited.
Next up, we had some words for Jericho about Brodie. Interesting why I was watching this in our bedroom on our TV, and my wife was just on her laptop, and she knows nothing about wrestling, had never heard of Brodie Lee, but the words with Jericho, she started crying when Jericho was talking about how he has a really mean dog, and when Brodie Lee came over, the dog immediately went up to him and licked his hand, like knowing this is good. Jon Huber is good people, and that made my wife sad, even though she knows nothing about these people. Next up, we had -1's dream match. Brodie Lee Jr. put together his favorite team of Cody Rhodes, Orange Cassidy, and 10 Preston Vance versus Brian Cage, Ricky Starks, and Powerhouse Hobbs of Team Taz. Right out of the gate, Hobbs runs over Cody, and Starks wants in at this point. Basically, all he did was knock Cody down, and Starks is like, oh, let me in. And so Hobbs tags in Starks, but then he gets beat up by Cody. Cody he wants to tag out to Orange Cassidy, but Orange Cassidy, it being his lazy self, didn't even extend his hand. Basically, Cody gave 10 a chop to tag him in. So the tension at least still continues with Cody and the Dark Order for obvious reasons, going back a while, months at this point. 10 beats on Starks. He gets a tag to Orange Cassidy. At this point, Hobbs gets tagged in and beats the crap out of Orange Cassidy. Starks does as well. So we get the heat on Orange. And I'd say the sneer from Hobbs at this point is getting a little over the top and forced looking. Might want to pull that back a little bit.
Yeah, that was one of my notes. I was like, "Hey, Will Hobbs, we get that you're cool and you're bad now, so please stop doing that weird face."
OC eventually has to do like a couple flip overs of the guys, and he gets a tag out. Cody hits a power slam on Starks for a 2 count. Cody tags out to 10. 10 hits a power slam and then a power bomb. Starks comes back with a spear. Orange Cassidy breaks up that pin. Orange Cassidy hits Starks with a DDT. Hobbs runs over Orange Cassidy. Cody super kicks Hobbs. Cage flatliners Cody. 10 hits a pump kick on Cage. Starks then hits a swing DDT on 10 for a 2 count. And then on the outside, Taz grabs a chair and he starts walking up the stairs to the stage. On the other side, Arn Anderson does the same, and they have like a little standoff with chairs on the stage. While this is happening, the ref turns his back. Orange Cassidy runs in, he hits the orange punch. Rhodes hits a crossroads, and then 10 hits a spine buster on, I believe it was Starks, and gets the win. So we have a clean sweep for Dark Order at the end of this. And post-match, we have Team Taz beating down everybody. Lights goes out. Darby's music hits. He walks out from the stands from one of the side doors. Lights go out again. Sting comes out. And then Team Taz makes their exit. And we head to a commercial break. So at this point, I'm like, wow, there's still like 15 minutes left. I'm not sure what they're going to do. I figured they're going to be some sort of tribute. But this match I thought was really fun. Orange Cassidy got his funny spots in, and then they got the heat on him. And really the only thing was Powerhouse Hobbs needs to pull back on the facial expressions a little bit.
Yeah, totally agree with that. I think that there's enough that he can do otherwise to continue reminding us that he is a heel now. I think he can cool it. Something that just was in my head when I was watching this, it said that this was -1's favorite wrestler, that he put them all together. And I don't know, please don't quote, excuse me, I hiccuped. Please don't quote me on this because I don't know if it's true. It probably is not true. But something inside of me just makes me think it'd be really funny if, these were Brodie Lee Jr.'s favorite wrestlers, and his dad would say, what about me? Yeah, you're good, Dad, but these were his favorites anyway. It was kind of like, hey, I want my 3 favorite wrestlers, and the top 3 are Orange Cassidy, 10, and Cody. I think that would have made me laugh. But for me, my dad is a preacher, actually, and, I heard my dad preach a lot. And my dad would always ask if I was his favorite or he was my favorite preacher. And I'd say, oh, yeah, you're really good. He's like, well, who's your favorite? And I'd name someone else that I'd heard preach at some conference. And he always, but like, it was just this funny thing we had. So it kind of made me laugh. Maybe these are Brodie Lee Jr.'s favorite wrestlers. And his dad was like, sure, Dad, you're good. But obviously, Brodie Lee was fantastic. Again, a very fun match. Just, I can't really come up with the words to say beyond that this was just perfectly booked throughout the entire night. We'll talk about even the highlight of the night is really what we're about to talk about, the final segment of the show. But just very emotional again. This had me crying again. I think I teared up 2 or 3 different times in the night. I think it was John Silver, Anna Jay, and then this match as well. Just a very, great emotional, giving 10 the pin. It's just, and you could tell when they close up on Preston Vance on his mask, you could see in his eye holes, you could see little tears behind the mask. It was just really, really emotional. A well done match and a well done show overall. From removing the circumstance away from it, I still get a little mad that we just haven't seen Team Sting and Team Taz just smash, like, fight yet. I would expect there have been more brawls, considering they've had a standoff about 5 weeks in a row. So I'm just expecting something to happen, and it just feels like it's taking a little too long, in my opinion. But I do appreciate what they're doing with Darby and Sting. I think that there's going to be something. There will be a payoff if we know AEW. They absolutely are going to reward your time and your interest. But it's taken a little bit long for me. But otherwise, like I said, there's really nothing to complain about here other than that.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of funny that 10 was in there, but of course, over the past few days, there's been a lot of pictures from lots of people related to Brodie Lee, and I'm guessing that Preston Vance is actually kind of in their personal lives as well, behind the scenes, because I've seen lots of pictures of him and Brodie Jr. playing video games at Brodie Lee's house and whatnot. So I'm guessing they know each other outside of just the wrestling circle as well. So that's probably why number 10 was in there. Yeah, and same thing with Alan Angels as well. He was basically chaperoning Brodie Jr. all night, being with him at ringside, and same thing. Everything I've heard, they're all playing video games with Brodie Jr. backstage and on their off time and whatnot. So that kid's gonna have. I know he lost his biological dad, but he's going to have a lot of dads looking out for him. It seems just how everybody AEW seems a lot more family like than every other company when it comes to wrestling. So everybody seems really thick as thieves for the most part here.
I agree. There's been multiple statements by multiple different people within AEW that family will be completely taken care of. They will not worry. They will not need for anything. And those boys are going to have plenty of role models and a lot of good influence in their lives, because there's a lot of good people there.
Yeah, I'm assuming Brodie Lee's contract will be paid out through the full contract. Brodie Lee Jr. has actually been signed to a contract, so he'll be able to be in AEW when he comes of age. So that's kind of because Brodie Lee Jr. is the biggest fan of wrestling, and he wanted to grow up to be a wrestler just like his dad. So if he wants to do that, AEW is there to help him do that if you like. Then after we come back, Cody is in the ring by himself. He says he was looking for a quote to encapsulate Brodie Lee, and the quote he had was, "You can judge a man by how he treats someone who can do him no good." I've never heard that quote before, and that's a really prophetic quote, I think. How you treat people who can't do you anything, or can do you and can actually do you bad things, really speaks to a person's character. He says he's going to be leaving a beautiful legacy. He was a beautiful man, and he introduces Brodie Lee Jr. He comes down to the ring with his mom and sets a pair of Brodie's boots in the middle of the ring. Cody puts a purple bandana on the top of them as well. They talk about how these boots have been retired, and then Tony says that Brodie Lee was the greatest TNT champion in front of Cody, which I thought was kind of funny. Yep. He said no offense to Cody, that he was a great man, and that Brodie Lee Jr. is now TNT champion for life, and he gave the TNT championship belt to Brodie Jr., and that belt has officially been retired, and it's going to stay with Brodie Lee Jr. There was a story when Brodie Lee won the TNT championship. When he got home, his son was asleep, and he snuck the belt under his arm in his bed, so he'd wake up with the TNT championship, because he obviously didn't know that he won it. So that championship has great meaning to Brodie Lee Jr. as well. So after that, they played a Brodie Lee tribute video, and the song that they used, I don't know what the song was. It was a Tom Waits song, I think.
I believe so.
And Tony Khan has said that he has bought the rights to that song in perpetuity, so they will never have to remove that music if they ever use it on some other show, or they have a network or something like that for replays.
Right. That song will always be on YouTube as well. So this clip of the tribute video on their YouTube channel cannot be taken down. It'll remain the way that it was created, which I thought was a great touch.
Anything for this?
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like we don't have the words to say really to talk about this video. It was just a perfect tribute package for Mr. Brodie Lee. It included tributes from a lot of friends from other companies, some video, some home movies, childhood photos of him with his children. Really just summed up who he was. And most of the pictures and the videos, I don't know if you noticed, but they were not wrestling related. They were they were wrestling related in that they were with other wrestlers, but I mean, they were in restaurants or backstage or making goofy faces. There was, some good montages of him, winning the TNT championship, the dog collar match with Cody, even a little bit of like the indie days and backyards and stuff. But for the most part, it was a lot of photos and videos of friends and family. And I think that's where the focus should have been. And it was. I think it was very tasteful. Another word I've already used multiple times, but everything here was in good taste and very well done. It's something that I think anyone could look at and say that I would like to be remembered like that. So it was a fantastic ending to the show. I think that retiring the belt, it's kind of ironic because that belt obviously really came about during this pandemic. And when it first was revealed, it wasn't even finished yet. They had to go back and get it gold plated. There was quite a little bit of a story on the delay of getting the belt finished. And now, however many 6-7 months later, it's being retired. They're going to have a whole new design, which I'm totally fine with. And specifically for Darby Allin, the current champion, I think that it almost will be in fitting with his character to have something a little bit different and a little bit new. I don't know if it'll be Darby specific, a la like the Fiend or John Cena spinner belt, stuff that's kind of specific for that champion. I wouldn't even mind. I think Darby's the right kind of character to have a special belt kind of. He's enough in the gimmick that they can do something a little bit different. But either way, I think that this was the right call. I think that having Tony and Cody out there really gave it an air of legitimacy. It just wasn't just any old, let's have the family. They weren't being interviewed by Shivani. They had real executives out there because this was real life, and they made it feel that way.
Yeah, in that package, I saw pictures him with Seth Rollins, Bray Wyatt, Eric Rowan, of course. I think I saw Braun Strowman in there. Basically, the whole Wyatt family. Just everybody that he had. I loved on Twitter, Carmella posted so many pictures of Brodie photobombing all of her pictures when she's ever backstage, which I thought was hilarious. Just a lot of photos from everybody, and I thought it was just great how they did this. This is probably one of the, if not the best 2 hours of television that AEW has done. It was both really fun and really sad all at the same time. I thought this show was pretty much perfect. I don't think I would change anything. Yeah,
I totally agree. I think that this is it really changes how I think moving forward people should be doing a tribute, and not that it's the kind of thing that you never want to see happen. You don't want to ever have to have a tribute to someone who's passed away too early, especially in not especially, but particularly in this case where, they are such a well-known and well-loved individual. And it really has to be public. That's it. Because even if you say you want it, to be private, the company has to acknowledge that, one of its top players is no longer with us. So you've got to really strike a weird line between, how do we keep this as classy, but also the show must go on sort of mindset. And they struck that balance perfectly here. It was not a thing was out of place, out of touch. It was all just right, even down to this, I think, rubbed some people the wrong way. But after MJF took that kendo stick shot, he actually tweeted, F that kid. And I think that was just a little touch that I think Brodie would have been totally not only fine with, but appreciated in the moment. Again, right down to Brodie Lee Jr. hiding his face when his mask was ripped off. Just a little bit of, real kayfabe in there. Everything here was just perfect. I can't describe it other than, like you said, this is probably the best 2 hours that they've ever put on for the moment, but also in general. Really good matches, really fun, well booked, and I can't give enough credit to Tony Khan and the booking team here for really being able to put something together like this on short notice, rearranging their schedule. Because really, I mean, in other companies, they might not have rearranged their schedule like this. This was supposed to be night one of New Year's Bash or Smash. There was going to be some big matches on the show and probably a lot of angles, a lot of run-ins. I mean, we're turning the corner here into a new year. This was their prime opportunity for their last show to do something big. And they said, screw it. We need to do what's right. And they did.
Anything else you want to talk about before we move on to some other lighthearted stuff that I have?
As long as the lighthearted stuff includes Adam Cole taking a discus lariat from Brodie Lee Jr., then no. As long as you've got that included.
No, I don't. I did not know that happened.
Yeah, okay. So Brodie Lee Jr. has been running wild backstage at AEW. I'm not sure if you knew, but they actually filmed a dark segment after the show a couple weeks ago, I believe, where Brodie Lee Jr. pinned Jon Moxley for the World Championship. That's where it began.
Omega.
Oh, did I say Moxley?
Yeah.
I'm in denial. I missed Jon Moxley, my champion. You're right. Pinned Kenny Omega for the championship. That was about 2 or 3 weeks ago. I think they said that was filmed. And since then, Brian Pillman Jr. Posted a long Instagram story in which Brodie Lee Jr. is just destroying Private Party. I'm trying to remember who else was in there, but a couple people. I think Ricky Starks was taking some bumps for Brodie Lee Jr. They're out, in a conference room. They're having some sort of probably a memorial service. And he's just out there, like right next to the catering tables, just like running bulldog, choke slam. I mean, on these big guys. Kind of touching in a way that it was Brian Pillman Jr. as well, who, has been in a similar situation in his family. Really, and he was the one videotaping it and doing commentary. So he's like, oh, this guy's running wild. And he's hitting all these moves. And then just a few days ago came out, probably from the same party. I think Brodie Lee Jr. was wearing the same T-shirt. But Britt Baker, from her Instagram story, there was a video of Adam Cole, who, must have been at this event personally, not obviously professionally with AEW, but he was here. And he took a big discus lariat. He had him down. He was at the beginning of the video. He's down on the ground. And Brodie picks him up like in a chokeslam position and holds him up like this and then backs up. But because he's so tall, he kind of had to crouch to get in position to take a discus. But he hits it real good and he follows through just like his dad did. He spins, and instead of just hitting him, he just flies through him. And Adam Cole takes this huge bump on the ground and he pins him 1, 2, 3, just, in the middle of catering or wherever it was. So just some really cute clips coming out of Brodie Lee Jr. Like you said, he wants to follow in his dad's footsteps and become a pro wrestler and really a champion too. I mean, he has a great legacy of his father in both WWE and AEW. Even though he may have been misused in WWE, I think a lot of people might say that, he did find some success, right? He was a tag team champion. I want to say an intercontinental champion as well, if I'm not mistaken. So, I mean, he had some good, some success, and he has, it's not just like, hey, my dad was a pro wrestler. This was his name. He worked in a backyard. Like, his dad was a name, he really was a proven draw. And I think that there's a lot to live up to, but I think not just live up to, but also kind of to honor, I think that he'll do very, very well. So in lighthearted news, him lariating Adam Cole, that made me laugh.
So yeah, I was just heading over to Twitter just to see what was going on over there, and we have Renee Paquette typing, Ever get pregnant and chug some chocolate milk straight from the container? Highly recommend it. 10 out of 10. And Brandy Rhodes replied to that. I wanted some chocolate milk the other day too. And then we have the Elias Meltzer Awards. This is from Elias Will Draw. It's just a small account, but I've seen it on a few different. Britt Baker like retweeted it, and it's the Hottest Girl of the Year awards, and number 6 is Kota Ibushi. Trailing Maria Kanellis, who was number 5. So I thought that was kind of funny that Kota Ibushi's on the hottest girls
on the planet.
Those girls on the planet. Yeah, I thought that was pretty funny. But as far as that goes, Wrestle Kingdom starts in 6 hours, I think, from where we are. I'll have to check, but yeah, it's not far away. It starts tonight. So
yep. I've got class in the morning, so I think it would be a very poor decision of me to wake up early and watch it live, but I'll try to catch it tomorrow night.
Yeah, it starts 2 a.m. Eastern, so that's under 5 hours, 4.5 hours from now.
Gracious. I'm really excited for that. I know you and I specifically, we do the AEW Dynamite show, so we've not actually really talked a lot of New Japan before, but I'm very excited. I know that the fan capacity is much reduced, but I still think that it'll be a great show. I think New Japan knows, how to turn it on, and I really don't think that there's been a bad Wrestle Kingdom since I've been watching it. The last probably 4 Wrestle Kingdoms I think I've seen. I've seen more now, but I mean, since I've been watching, I watched the past 4, I believe, and there's never been a bad Wrestle Kingdom. There really isn't. So I'm very excited, and I have to just give my boy a shout out. Breathe with the Switchblade. He's my man in New Japan. So him and Ospreay are my 2 favorites. So
hopefully these shows aren't going to be a million hours long. They're both 6-match cards, so I'm hoping they both wrap up in about the 3-hour mark, so we won't have 12 hours of wrestling to review with Trey. So
right,
but should be a good one.
Want to say too, I think the decision to move to 2 nights is highly regarded in my opinion. I think that this should be 2 nights, and truthfully, I think WrestleMania should be 2 nights. I don't think anyone needs a 7-hour wrestling show. People are just worn out. People who go there live don't want to be there anymore. You can put the best match on of the night, and people are going to be completely worn out. So I hope that when we go back to the non-COVID world, that people or the biggest shows, companies are really taking this into consideration. I think AEW is probably the only exception in my mind, because they really don't do any like mega cards like this. Their pay-per-views are generally pretty well timed. So I don't think
3.5 and 4 hours most of the time, but they only do them 4 times a year.
Starting to get a little long. I don't know if you felt that way, but a couple of their pay-per-views as of the last year or so, I'm like, it's getting there. A 3-hour wrestling show is great for a pay-per-view. For a weekly show, 2 hours. Your pay-per-view 3. That's perfect in my opinion. So I really like these 2-night shows, and it actually gives another possibility for storytelling as well, which they're doing this year with Naito, Ibushi, and Switchblade.
Or they could just have matches with all the championships and maybe 1 non-title match and call it good, and then you'd have a regular card. One thing I really hope I talked about this with Trey, but the G1 this year, so much nicer having 1 Young Lions match and then going straight to block matches. None of 5 undercard matches before we even get to dark matches. So I think the G1 was I hope they keep that and keep those shows 2:15, whereas most of those shows are coming in at. And that included the 10 to 15 minute sanitation break. So they'll probably come in at 2 hours if they were like a regular show. So let's try to keep that next year.
I think that the changes that some people have had to make for COVID should be, continued after. I think once that we get back, I'm hoping that this year in 2021, we really start to get back to normal a little bit. I think with the vaccine rolling out and everything, I think that we're going to be in good shape, at least by the summer or the fall. I think that things will start to go back to normal just a bit. But I hope that some of these wrestling companies take some of the lessons that they had to learn or adjustments that they had to make and keep doing it, because I've seen some really good improvements. Like I said, the 2-night shows, some shorter shows, just like you said. I think that there's some good to have come out of this.
Yeah, so we have 3 solid days of New Japan coming up, the 2 nights of Tokyo Dome, plus New Year's Dash on Wednesday. So those are going to be the shows. And they're all going to... Kevin Kelly is in Japan, so he is going to be calling those shows live, and he is going to be in Japan until the middle of February. So he's going to be there for quite a few things. Unfortunately, he has to come back to the United States to deal with some estate stuff. His mom passed away this year, so he has to deal with some estate stuff. Otherwise, he would have just stayed in Japan to continue calling some of the stuff. So we have that to look forward to as well. So some good outlook here on 2021 coming up with the 2 solid shows that are coming up for AEW in the next 2 weeks. And then New Japan this week, and then going into their New Beginning shows near the end of the month. So should be a good one.
Yep. We also have, I just thought of this as well, but we also have AEW Beach Break coming up in February. I think that's going to be one of their named Dynamite shows. I don't think that's a pay-per-view.
Correct.
But I'm looking forward to those. Those are always kind of a near pay-per-view caliber when it comes to the matches. Not just the match quality, but the developments, the results are oftentimes pretty major as well. Similar to Winter is Coming, a new championship with Kenny Omega, or champion with Kenny Omega. So I always do kind of look forward to those named Dynamite shows. So I think we've got actually a pretty solid couple months here coming up from AEW specifically.
Yep. Anything else you want to cover, or are we going to wrap it up?
No, sir. I think I'm all set. If you and Trey need an extra hand with Wrestle Kingdom, just let me know. I don't want to intrude or anything, but okay. I would love to talk about that, because I'm really excited to see what happens here in the next couple days.
Yeah, I'll let you know, and you'll see us in the chat. So be prepared. How's that?
Okay.
All right. So thanks for watching and listening to That's Wrestling. You can find us on all your favorite podcast apps. Plus, if you're listening to this as a podcast, head over to either YouTube or Twitch. The link is in the show notes, so you can watch this show live and throw in your thoughts. If you're watching this on YouTube and Twitch, I already said you can find it on all your podcast apps. Head over to our Discord and come hang out. We have channels for all types of stuff, or just hang out in general. Comments, questions, and feedback, you can send those to Eric at that'swrestling.com, or you can head over to Twitter, that's wrestling1 with the number 1 at the end. Give us a review on your favorite podcast app. It really helps us out. And I believe that's it. Stay tuned for some New Japan stuff coming up this week, and of course AEW Dynamite as always. When are we going to be doing the Dynamite review this week?
Thursday
at 6 o'clock.
Yes, sir.
All right, we're bumping it up an hour, so we're going to go at 6 o'clock on Thursday for the next AEW Dynamite review. So for Caleb Johnson, my name is Eric LaRoche, and you've been watching and listening to That's Wrestling. See you later, guys.